floods, tornadoes. Somebody forgets to open up a sluice in the Upper Ottawa River in a dam or something like that, or a weir, and oh my goodness, right away it's global warming causing flooding downstream. You know what I'm saying, Nick? This is what's going to happen with the plastic thing. Mm-hmm. Is the minute it gets out there, when people start talking about plastic being a toxic substance,
an extension of that kind of thing.
Yeah, people are going to go nuts, and you're going to start having popular demand.
The environment needed protecting.
You're going to have a popular demand for banning all plastics, and people are going to go, I can't drive in my car if there's plastic in the seat. That's what's going to happen here.
Okay, so all right, so let's take public transit, because nobody likes cars anymore. You look at a public transit unit, whether it be a train or a bus or a plane, and ask yourself how much of this thing contains plastic. So if you remove the plastic, but you still want the public transit, what are you going to replace the plastic with? Are we going to go back to wood? Are we going to use mortar? Are we going to, exactly how is this going to play out? And when you get into that kind of detail, people clam up because they don't have, or they just think you're a denier, or they start throwing epithets around because they don't have the answers. It's not that they think you're wrong. They just don't know what the right answer is. The right answer is there's nothing wrong with what we're doing now. That's why we're doing it. And that's what's frustrating is you try to engage people in conversation and their brain shuts off the moment you hit them with things they hadn't considered before. Like, okay, so you want to ride a bike. What are you going to make the tires out of? What are you going to make the seat out of? What about the handlebar grips? What are you going to do? Are you going to go back to cork? Do you know what kind of process you have to go through to harvest enough cork just for the bicycles you want to put on the road? I mean, there's no end to this. And then when you come with that, in their head they're going, well, I never thought of that, but they can't admit it. They're too admitted. They're too convicted by what they've said all along. They've got too much capital involved. It's like David Suzuki ever admitting he was wrong about global warming. He is, always has been, but he's got so much invested in it, he can't afford to say he was wrong now. He'll never say he was wrong. He'll die without ever admitting it. But better that than actually say, oh boy, did I blow that. And that's what we face now.
Yeah, and it's a dangerous situation because, again, this is somebody far wiser than you and me put together, Nick, once said that the road to hell is paved with the best of intentions. And that's what I see here again. I see largely good intentions that are being exhibited manifest by people who have very little knowledge, very little experience, and are just, very poor judgment in many cases. But they have control over the levers of power, and they're able to use the government as a blunt instrument to batter people into doing things which are, in fact, when it comes to things like the environment, are in fact not only are they environmentally sound and safe, but to take the opposite course would be environmentally disastrous. You take, for instance, the example you gave of plastics in a bus, for instance. What are you going to replace it with? Well, maybe not wood, but you have to replace it with something, so maybe it'll replace it with, I don't know, aluminum or something like that. What people fail to realize is that in order to get the aluminum, you have to extract it from the earth. And, I hate to say this, but there's probably less supply of aluminum in the world than there is oil to make plastics. Okay? So, all of a sudden people are going to be talking about, we have to be careful because we're going to run out of aluminum. But the process of extracting the aluminum, okay, the mining of it, the processing of it,
manufacture,
okay, and then the manufacturing process, all of these things take energy, and now the question is, how are you going to provide the energy that's necessary to obtain and to manufacture all of these things? Guess what? You're not going to do it with electricity. You're actually going to have to do it with some sort of petroleum products, because you can't name me one efficient, functional front-end loader that runs on electricity.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean,
the battery would weigh more than the front-end loader.
Well, do people have any idea of how much actual energy is used by some of these machines?
I know we keep agreeing with each other tonight. What's that?
I mean, people just have no concept. Lay people.
Yep.
Lay people, that's the important thing. Lay people have no concept at all about how much energy is used by some of these large machines, just in order to get at the material the raw material that's necessary in order to produce things like steel, copper wire, And what are we going to, speaking about copper wire, okay, what are you going to insulate all of that copper wire with if not plastic?
Well, they tried paper ones. That worked out well.
Yeah, not too well, Nick. Not too well.
No, I was being facetious. They banned it. You can't use it anymore.
No, it's crazy. There's no thinking about consequences. There's no critical thinking. Nobody subjects their good ideas. Somebody goes, "I've got a good idea. Let's save the environment. Let's save the tortoises by banning straws." And you saw a picture of a tortoise with a straw in its nose, so you think, okay, well, that's a good idea. Let's do it. But nobody hits the pause button anymore and says, okay, is that really a good idea? Let's think it through. There's very little thinking things through in our world today, Nick. There's very little subjecting our opinions, our first opinion, our thoughts, our theories to critical analysis. And I think that this is it's a subject for a whole show. Are you there?
I think that I'm right here, just letting you finish. I just think that there's a lot of superficial thinking going on. It sounds good, so it must be. And nobody ever, as you put it, carries it through. They don't stop and think about, well, if I pull in front of this tractor trailer in my 1,500-pound car, 2,000-pound car, and I slam on the brakes, surely he'll be able to stop in front of me, even though he's only got 15 feet. He'll stop all right, but he'll push you down the highway a very long way, because people don't think about mass times velocity equals kinetic energy. They don't understand that they have forgotten, because I'm sure they learned it in high school.
I'm not sure about that anymore.
That there's some laws you simply cannot rewrite. And the law of common sense is one, and the law of physics is the other.
Well, you can ignore the laws of common sense, but you can't ignore the laws of physics. And by the way, your example about that 2,000-pound car, without plastic, that 2,000-pound car is going to be a 4,000-pound car. And now all of a sudden it's not going to run on electric battery power. Or not very far, not very fast.
All of that is very true.
So
that's exactly right. And even if it did, what are you going to charge it with? Because now you've banned the plastic to coat the hydro wires with.
Well, and again, I think to put all of this discussion into perspective, I'm going to say this, okay? That I'm going to remind people that nobody in the government here in Canada at this moment is talking about an outright ban on plastic the way we're making a little bit of fun here. We're exaggerating for effect, but ultimately, by declaring plastic a toxic substance, you're creating the conditions where the public is going to actually end up demanding these kind of changes, because they're going to believe, ladies and gentlemen, that by being exposed to this toxic substance called plastic, that they are actually being poisoned, that their health is in jeopardy. And once the public starts to believe that, then it's only a short matter of time before politicians, A, start responding to it, or even worse, start getting elected that actually believe it as well. And before you know it, you are going to have strong desire, strong movements as a matter of policy to ban more and more plastics, because you actually believe that plastic in use in day-to-day life is a health hazard, when in fact it's not. Zero, not at all a health hazard. That's why we use plastics. Anyway.
I would go so far as to say that plastics is one of the greatest inventions ever conceived, or one of the most beneficial things ever to come down the pike. When you look at our healthcare, when you look at just day-to-day life, when you look at I can't think of an area of life where it doesn't have a positive impact. Healthcare alone. Think about IV bags.
Right, I was just thinking that.
Right? If you IV bags, you have to have glass bottles.
Go back
if you
to
watch
glass, yeah.
some of the old movies like MASH or the old shows, all the IV bottles were literal bottles. They were glass. If you drop it, it breaks. You lose what's inside it.
Correct.
If you drop an IV bag, you wipe it off and you put, you check it and make sure it's not been punctured or anything. But as long as it's sound, you can use it.
And
there's a reason that
the IV bags are also they're
the little masks.
Yeah, the IV bags are also vacuum bags, so you don't actually have to refill as you're emptying an IV bottle. It's filling with air, so you have all kinds of potential contaminants there. It's the IV bag is a brilliant example.
I thought of that, right? So, hypodermic needles. Medicine bottles themselves. Like, we went from glass jugs, plastic. Why? Because economically it made sense for the dairy to put it in plastic bags, because you could ship more milk on the same truck, because a lot more of the weight of the truck that the truck was carrying was actual product, not packaging. So then in the home, it was easier to store. You didn't take up as much room in the fridge. You could lay the plastic bags, like 3 bags to the 3 little 1 quart bags inside a big bag. Lay it down the bottom of your fridge. If you tried that with 3 quarts of milk in glass bottles, it takes up a lot more space. So there's all kinds of advantages to this, and people never ever stop to say, how would that impact my life if we actually did this? Okay. What would change? Okay. The answer is everything.
Okay, Nick, we're coming up to the bottom of the hour here, so we're going to have to take a break. So we will be back, ladies and gentlemen, in a few minutes here on the Nick and Joe Show on ThinkRadio.ca.